the Hollywood Actor Podcast with Chris Bylsma, Part 2.
My first co-star was actually From Dusk Till Dawn.
Okay.
Yeah, which is an El Rey show, kind of Robert Rodriguez's. It's not his baby, I guess, but it's his show that kind of transitioned off the movie in the 90s. My first actual co-star audition was for Better Call Saul. And so again, for me, like a Breaking Bad nerd like me, when I got that audition, I was like, boom, this is why I came here. You know, it'd been a couple months, things had been a little slow, and partly that's because I was going back to Kansas to visit and do work, and kind of that one foot in New Mexico, 1 foot other places that I just talked about.
Yeah.
And then when I went back to New Mexico and kind of refocused, that opportunity came in, and I didn't even get the role, but I just knew, I was like, this is why I'm here, to be a part of episodic storytelling.
Yeah, an audition is a win, right? We've learned that.
It is. For sure. And, you know, if you get called back, even better. And I think for that one, I even got put down to first right. So, yeah, just huge wins. And even though I didn't get it, and that was crushing at the time. But I think the very next episodic thing I auditioned for was From Dusk Till Dawn with Joedna Bolden and Marie McMaster. And, she had me prepare 2 parts. And I read the first one. She said, that's awesome. Read this and come back in. Came back in, did it, and that's what I booked. So
nice. I love that when casting directors, they start getting to know you and they get to know what your energy is, and they say, I still want to use this guy.
Yeah. And it's pretty flattering, you know, because it's great to be brought in for a role anytime, of course, but we just know odds are we're not going to be quote unquote right for it for whatever reason. But to have them be able to be like, you know what? No, I really like your work, and I like, you know, the vibe that I'm getting, the energy that I'm getting. Let's try this instead. It's a good feeling to know that they're not just going to be like, okay, thanks, and let you go out the door. Like, if there's something for you, they'll find it for you. And Joedna and Marie especially are really great about that. They've done that multiple times where they've had me read for something else. So
you're making an impact. You're starting a conversation, a relationship.
Yeah, for sure. That man, that co-star on From Dusk Till Dawn really just, you know, because we're kind of transitioning from indie film, that was the transition piece for me, because I was so nervous, because I was like, I know that I've acted 100 times, you know, more than that at this point on indie films, and I'm comfortable with who I am and my approach and my method and everything else, but I've never been on a set like this before, you know. And it just worked out to where they needed to film my stuff in a couple different days, and the first day was just going to be a splinter unit where one of the producers was directing it. It was a small amount of crew. The cast was mostly me, and then Sheila Eden, who's another really great actress. Yeah, you know her, don't you?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, great actress in New Mexico, singer, songwriter, you know, very talented artist. She was in the scene as well. But it couldn't have been a better transition for me, because I still showed up with my nerves just completely bouncing off the inside of my stomach, keeping like a very straight face. But I was like, oh man, I've never even seen one trailer before, much less 150 million is what it felt like. But then when I stepped on set, it was a small amount of crew, very indie film like. And because it wasn't a scene with the lead actors at this point, the producer just came over, who was directing that day. He came over, he talked with me specifically about the scene. They were able to ask if I had any ideas or questions. And it was just such a seamless transition, because it helped me realize this is just like indie film. You know, again, to go back to that basketball metaphor, every like motivational, good, feel good, like college hoop story is always about like the little college team who plays on their tiny court, and then they make it into March Madness, and they step out on that big court, and they all get intimidated, and or in the big stadium where there's 50 million more seats, and the coach always goes out there and like measures the court, and then gives them some speech about, guess what, it's still X amount of feet from baseline to baseline, from free throw line to free throw line. Like, it's the exact same playing field. It's just changed a little bit around you. And that was definitely my moment there, where I kind of was able to get my feet under me and realize I can do this. You know, yeah, it's bigger scale, but it's no different than indie film at its heart.
What a warm welcome, and what a great. I mean, obviously, an actor's first co-star. It's crystal clear, so memorable.
Yeah,
because of those pressures, those anxieties, that life-changing experience, that career-altering experience. To be quite honest, there's nothing like it.
Yeah, I agree, man. And you know, they're not always the most challenging. They're not always the most fun. Like I said, I love doing indie film, and and there are, at least 10, if not 20 roles before that that I had in indie film that were more memorable in different ways and more creatively, satisfying and stimulating and everything else. But it's still like a part of the business of being an actor is accruing co-stars, is getting experience on these bigger sets. And so it still is this indelible moment that you'll never forget.
Yeah. Like you're saying, it's more of a career thing than an artistic thing. It's something that that it's hard to explain. It's hard to explain the pressure of something when and like you've been experiencing in indie film and then transitioning, and you know you can do all these things. You know this whole world is available to you, but what you're offering, maybe a sentence or two, is it being plugged in the exact right manner?
Hmm.
Am I doing too much? Am I doing too little? All these questions that you have because you just never done it. And to
Right.
start breaking in and start like mounting that, it's like to me like a mountain metaphor, right? The first pickaxe as you're starting to climb that icy mountain.
Hmm.
The first one goes in and you realize it's holding, and it's just such a relief, such a burden that's been lifted off your shoulders that can then precipitate you to for that momentum to gain with these different co-stars, which led you to working on a Breaking Bad story, El Camino with Vince Gilligan. I mean, that being a Breaking Bad fan, you you must have been unbelievably excited, nervous, and anxious. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Oh, sure, man. Yeah, and you nailed it there with those descriptors. Like I said, huge, huge Breaking Bad fan. My friend Sahil just recommended to me, "Hey, you would love this show," and he'd been right many times before with Arrested Development and a bunch of other movie suggestions. And so I thought, okay, fine. I was out on Black Friday looking for my deals on movies and TV shows, and I came across like the first three seasons all on sale for $10 each, and I was like, fine, I'll just drop $35 then on Sahil's recommendation that I'll love the show. Because that was back before it was on Netflix or anything else. And sort of the first two episodes, I was like, oh, great pilot episode. And then it kind of slowed down a little bit. And I thought, okay, I'm not sure I'm seeing all the hype quite yet. And then it just like it clicked and took off. And I love the show from, the acting, the storytelling, the cinematography, everything about it is just amazing for me personally. And I loved it so much that again, I tried to do that whole one foot in both camp things. And in the last season of Breaking Bad, I even like messaged the extras casting director, which I think was Elizabeth Gable. I can't quite remember. Maybe it was White Turtle Casting. I can't remember if she's associated with them or not. But I know I messaged him and just said kind of like, hey, this is the thing. I'm not just a Breaking Bad fan. I'm also an actor, and I'm in Kansas City, which is within travel distance. If there's even a chance to be an extra, I would be an extra in it. I even went that far, but I wasn't willing to commit and actually move to New Mexico. And so I never heard back from them because they just can't afford to do that. But moving there, I was like, well, there's still a chance for Better Call Saul. And then that wasn't happening. Many, many opportunities and getting close many times. And then all of a sudden, my agent, Carissa Mitchell, who's amazing, was like, hey, I'm just letting you know that I heard that they are going to film a Breaking Bad movie here. So she was kind of telling me, make sure you're in town around this time. Let's get your clips and reels and headshots brushed up if we need to, because she knows not just me as an actor, but me as a person. And she knows how important that opportunity was to me, which is one of the things I love about her. And yeah, man, crazily enough, I actually was on the road because I needed to help my older brother move across states. And of course, as soon as I'm on the road, I get this audition notice for El Camino. I was like, you couldn't have like been casting that 3 days earlier. Naturally, I have to be on the road for this one. And there was like literally no way I could make it back. Like I've driven all night before to make it in time, but I couldn't do it physically. Um, so I had to be like, can we do a tape for the first round?
Yeah.
And she checked, and Kira Ari was casting it, and Kira's cast me many times before. And so she was like, yeah, we can do a tape because I know Chris will do a good one, which again is really important for actors out there. Like every tape is important because it sets a precedent as far as what they can expect and if you'll be professional enough to do that in the future and all that stuff. But sent in the tape, and then I didn't hear which there's a cool story about that too, which we can talk about later if there's enough time. But I didn't hear anything back about callbacks. And I think one of my friends even mentioned, oh yeah, I heard that they had callbacks for
Oh
it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So then I had my super down moment of like, oh man, that's crushing. Cause I told Carissa specifically, I was like, hey, for callbacks, I will do whatever it takes to be there in person, you know. So just make sure Kira knows that and make sure I can be there. Um, and then on the way back, actually, from helping my brother move, I got an email that said, "Hey, just so you know, you're on first right of refusal for this. So, you know, kind of hold your schedule open." And immediately I was like, "What? I didn't even go to the callback for it. I thought I'd written it off, you know?"
Yeah.
Um, but it was, I guess, just one of those things where they saw enough from the tape, and of course, they had seen me many times for Better Call Saul, and in some cases, you know, for Saul, they do in-person callbacks same day in Albuquerque, and they're there shooting it, so it's always with the writers and the producers in there. So I'd already met, you know, Peter Gould and Vince Gilligan and stuff like that. So they I guess saw enough from the tape, and a couple of days later, I got the notice that I'd been cast, and just kind of like sat there for. I didn't even want to look at it at first because it was an email, and once Carissa was just in and out of meetings all day, so she couldn't call me like she normally does. She had to send an email, and my experience with getting emails when I've been on hold has only been bad. They've all been like, "Sorry, you've been released," and things like that.
So that's funny. She was busy. So you're like, "Oh, no, it's gonna be I didn't."
Right, right. I just saw El Camino in the title in the text line for the title subject, and I was like, I can't even look at this right now. And it took me like I don't know, probably 5 or 10 minutes. I was with an old friend at the time who can attest to how much I didn't want to look at the email. But when I finally opened it up, man, saw that I was cast and just that was amazing, amazing, man. That's again just kind of shows what can happen when you decide I'm going to commit and I'm going to go for this. You know, for me to even be able to dream to have even be on screen in Breaking Bad, much less have dialogue. I would never even thought of it back when I was first watching the show in 2012, I think it was. Never even like acting in New Mexico in Kansas City. Like I said, I was just hoping to be able to travel and to be an extra if at all possible, but I knew that was a long shot. But then
Yeah,
actually like make a move of that took a lot of courage and to go ahead and do that and invest in my own career and to have this come back was just amazing.
that's funny. That reminds me of twice was heading to the Grand Canyon, and I've never gotten there because twice I got emails for auditions in Albuquerque.
Yeah.
They had to pick me up around. It was around. I think it was still in New Mexico technically. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Man.
gas station. Yeah, come pick me up as you know. Yeah, just so I could do that. Just so I could do that audition because it was that momentous. It was
Yeah.
trying to break into the co-star. It's the hardest thing for an actor. I've done so many indie films. I've done so many plays, but to audition for a CSA casting director for a TV or a film role and have lines, it's
Hmm.
just I don't know. There's something mentally large that just looms over you, and
Yeah.
you feel that obligation, that pressure, that anxiety instantaneously. For me, and I've heard like we're talking about, it's something you have to make happen. You do whatever it takes to make happen, and then when you get that first email, and I got that call from Carissa,
Hmm.
and just crying with her on the phone, and I'm like, this you don't know how much this means to me.
Yeah.
It's hard to
Mm.
explain to people how much that one investment. It seems simple to them, I'm sure, and it's life changing to us.
Yeah. Man. And yeah, this career, this journey is filled with those moments where you cry with your agent over these huge moments that you can't even really put into words to anybody else, and it's such a difficult journey because, like we talked about earlier, like getting an audition is a win, getting a callback is a win, getting put on hold is a gigantic win, and yet your friends and your family, God love them, they're not in the business, so they cannot understand. It's not their fault. They can't understand. If you were to share that with them, then later on they'd be like, "Oh, hey, so when do you shoot?" And
Right.
then you have to be like, "Oh, I didn't actually get the role." "Oh, okay." And then some of them that are aware enough at least can be like, "Well, you'll get the next one," and they're very comforting and everything, but they just don't understand these many wins along the way. And then yeah, it can be a one line co-star, but when it's your first one, it's just an amazing feeling that when somebody sees the one line on screen, they'll never understand what it meant when you got that call. But
How was it like shooting at El Camino? Being on set.
whew, it was a lot of fun. And so we get there and we go to rehearse the scene the day before. And so and hilariously, like we're sitting there in rehearsal, and of course, this script is so tight-lipped. It's incredible. It's the most like secret thing I've ever been on before. In fact, I showed up to the studio where they were filming it, where I've been many times, and it's like, okay, yeah, you'll go here, and then you'll wait for someone to bring you back. And I'm like, I know how to get back to that area of the studio. I get there, and every single door has had like a lock put on it to where you can't go through it unless you have a Greenbrier at the time is what the code name, a Greenbrier like security badge. I'm like, oh my gosh, of course, Breaking Bad would go to this degree. Um, so we get led back there, and I'm back there with Matt Van Wettering, a really great friend and extremely talented actor, man. Um,
On Roswell.
yeah, Roswell, yeah, he's on
Yeah,
that a lot.
yeah.
Um, and in fact, we'd always been saying, man, we just got to, I was doing his reels at the time, but we'd been saying, man, we got to work together on something. And then we got that moment where I think we even did it while we were waiting for Vince to come into rehearsal. We just kind of looked to each other and we said, well, we're working together now. We didn't think it'd be on El Camino, but it was amazing. And then we talked to Scott MacArthur, who played one of the main characters in El Camino. He was just standing there waiting for rehearsal too. And we were like, so, we got this a couple of pages for this scene. Most of like there was a little transition scene, I guess, from another part in the film that was completely blacked out. A lot of the page looked like it was like a government document that had been redacted or something. So
Yeah.
we were like, can you tell us anything about the scene? Like what's led up to this and whatever? And they were so tight-lipped, and Scott just knew intuitively that his NDA was so ironclad that even to us actors in the scene that we were about to rehearse, basically he told us, he's like, well, we work together and a character is about to walk in and we've had an interaction with him before and you're about to see what happens. And we were like, come on, man, we're here to do the exact same scene. But he wouldn't even tell us it's going to be Jesse Pinkman and this is what happened or anything. He was like, I can't do any of that. I got to leave it up to Vince. Pretty hilarious. But then when Vince came in, we were going through it and he said multiple times, he's like, we ran through it and multiple times he'd be like, that was great. I think we'll add some lines here or there just to make it more conversational. You guys will have a lot of freedom on set. And at that time, Matt and I and Brandon Sexton, at least, who's amazing, also a great actor, awesome guy. We all kind of we're playing the three like smaller welders in that scene, and so we all kind of look at each other like, yeah, he means the other guys though. Like we'll see how that actually goes on set. He's probably not going to let us improv. Um, and then it turned out to be exactly like what Vince said, man. He really did cut us loose and he was like, oh, yeah, this is just totally up to you guys. Let's try things. And if we're feeling like it's not quite working, then we'll adjust them. But, because of that, my little one line role, maybe two lines in the script was, I don't know what. One of my friends counted them up and he's like, I'm pretty sure there's like 12 or 15 lines. Now, a lot of them, of course, are like, you know, outside in the dark or we're all talking over each other or whatever. But full credit to Vince to not just lock us in because he's a writer too. Obviously, that's what most people knew him for it before Breaking Bad. And a lot of times when you work with a writer director, just instinctively they're going to want it kind of word perfect. But he
Right.
was so generous and just open to us making the scene our own and really just being these welding guys who have their own like inside jokes and all this stuff. It was amazing to get to do that.
Yeah. Was he trying to like fill the scene a little bit or trying to bring life to your guys' relationships, you think?
I think it was somewhat both, yeah, because there's some A to B stuff where okay, well the I guess Neil was his name, I think, in the show, Scott MacArthur, he calls to us while we're in the building and says that the girls are here. Well, it just says that we kind of like shout and run out to the vehicle. Well, you do need to fill that scene a little. It's like, well, how do you show that without that being some boring little walking scene? You throw some dialogue in there, you let people be themselves and bring some personality, but then also like inside um, he just really wanted our relationship to show through where we're just like BSing about stuff basically as the camera kind of cuts in and before Jesse walks into the scene. That's where Brendan had this amazing bit about I think it was about like Sean Bradley and, and Mormons doing coke and things like that. That we just every time we busted up laughing, just genuinely. And in my whole like cocaine and Mormons thing that my a couple of my friends love a lot. It was some of both though for sure, filling the scene, kind of helping us get where we were trying to go for the main parts of it, because the relationship between Neil, Casey, and Jesse is of course the most important part. But also, yeah, I really feel like watching that scene. I'm just like, yeah, these guys obviously have worked together for years and years, and you can do that with good writing, but I feel like kind of letting actors relax and just live in their characters and be themselves. And if that means throwing out some lines here and there, letting them do it, I think that really lends itself to that kind of authenticity.
Yeah, you could do a prequel spinoff for those guys. Cocaine's and Mormons.
Right? Yeah.
That
Yeah,
is,
there you go. Once they wrap up Better Call Saul, they'll need another show to do anyway, right?
yeah,
So,
exactly. Keep
oh
going.
man.
Did you notice a definite uptick? I mean, that's such a high profile film. El Camino, a Breaking Bad story, a Netflix original film that we've been waiting 10 years to see if there was a capper to that story. And there we go. We were served one. And,
Hmm.
and you're in it and you have lines. Did you notice that you were starting to audition more, or was that giving you added confidence to look towards LA? Or had you been bouncing back and forth even from LA to Albuquerque, Kansas City at that point?
Yeah, I began to bounce back and forth to LA. I moved to New Mexico in 2015, and I began to bounce back and forth. Uh, I believe it was 2018, and that's only because it's not this big like, oh, I have to live in LA to be like an actual actor. That's the mindset you actually run across, and it's mind-boggling. I love New Mexico, and I love the people there and the films and TV shows that we make there, and I always want to make films there. But there's also like a larger world of acting out there in these bigger markets, LA and New York, and it's kind of like for people who just want to live in New Mexico and be actors or be crew there, that's amazing. That's the best choice they could possibly make for them. And same goes for people who want to do that in Kansas City or in any other market. But if you do kind of have dreams of breaking into all of this other content that's being made, then as an actor, you do have to at least make an effort to be out there in LA trying to make connections and trying to audition and
Options
you know
now too, that you can be a New Mexico local and be an actor, being a crew member, and work your dream job and be on the ground here in the state that you love, that you're born and raised in. But yeah, I understand that there is a larger world and different markets.
mhm,
Georgia and yeah, Los Angeles obviously has been, it's the Hollywood Actor Podcast. It's more of a symbol almost these days, since things
sure.
film so seldom, honestly, in Los Angeles. But it's
Yeah.
definitely a place where you can make those larger connections, where you can begin to continue to grow that career and make your way into a wider, more global world of entertainment.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I think that's a great point you brought up. And some people will use this as a reason that you absolutely don't need to be in LA or New York, but I don't think that it's true. But this fact that things don't film there as frequently as they used to, like they film in Atlanta and they film in Albuquerque and North Carolina and all these places that I mentioned earlier. And there's a lot of truth to that. However, it's still true that a vast majority gets cast in LA and New York. And we're talking, the series regulars that cast during pilot season. We're talking a lot of the guest stars. If you talk to any actor, whether it's Atlanta or New Mexico or anywhere else, you'll get the perspective that oftentimes there's kind of a co-star cap on roles, and there's nothing wrong with that because co-stars are amazing, and we do get guest stars in Albuquerque and Atlanta, and nobody should say that you never can, for sure. But a lot of times the bigger guest stars or even the large co-stars do cast out of LA or New York and fly in. It's just the way it is. And I could verify that because a lot of the roles that I've been on hold for that were kind of bigger ones in New Mexico, then when I see the show, it was an LA actor, sometimes without even as many credits as me or some other friend that got the role. And sometimes that's just look, which is totally understandable. Like there are millions of actors in LA, New York, and not millions in Albuquerque. And so, despite all of our casting directors' best efforts to get it cast local, and they succeed in that so many times, there are times where they're just going to go out of market. And so I think that's why it still never hurts to look at the possibility, at least, that you need to spend some time in LA and New York to build connections, depending on what your goals are.
Did you relocate at all to Los Angeles, or you do Airbnb while you're there?
Yeah, at first I was just staying with a friend out there, and now I have a place just because I want it to. I just want it. I want there to be that flexibility to where if I'm going to go there for a month and be ready to go back to New Mexico at any time, of course, if I need to, but I'm going to go there for a month and really like try to make connections and do a networking trip or whatever it might be, then I don't want to have to look for an Airbnb. I don't want to have to crash on friends' couches. Like for me personally, I need a place in both spots. I'm still definitely a New Mexico local and plan on staying that way until if there's a reason, why I need to transition, then at that point I will. But I'm in no hurry. That's the way I was in Kansas City too. I was like, I'm loving it here, and I'm not going to move until there's a reason to. And then there was one to move to New Mexico.
Thanks for listening to the Hollywood Actor Podcast. If you enjoy this content, don't forget to subscribe, rate, review, and share.